Hey everybody, welcome to the Midnight Ride. We're gonna midnight ride right now, man. I got some videos picked out, some sweet ass videos. Some of them I'm in, some of them I'm not in, but they're just about amazing topics. And we're gonna react to those and hang out. So we're live on Conspiracy Theories and Chill Pages and Rumble, which is always our main hub. Rumble's our main channel. So if you're not subscribed to the Rumble channel, go over there and subscribe because that's the only free speech, zero censorship platform we have. And we can get shut down everywhere else. And you may have to find us on Rumble because that one never gets shut down because Rumble is the shit. This is a midnight ride. We're going to ride. We're going to hang out. We're going to watch cool videos. We're going to react to those. We're going to talk about things. We're going to bond as a group. It's going to be amazing. But in just a second, I'm going to start us off with our first midnight ride. We're vibing right now, hanging out, vibing to this funky music. You know, it's funky. And that's what you need is something funky every once in a while. You need that funk. That funk gets you through. That funk will get you through, show you what to do. And you know that it's true. Because the funk is what you need to do. But yeah, this is the morning, not the morning yank. I almost said this is the morning yank. It's a midnight ride. It's the morning, but it's much more morning than the morning yank ever was. It's much more in the morning than that because we just started the day 10 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago, it became Tuesday, and we can officially get that going, you know. I don't know how you feel about Tuesday, but it is Tuesday. So however you feel about it, buckle up, Buttercup, because it's time. It's time for Tuesday. But I got our first clip loaded up, and as you can see, it does have me in it, and it has to do with the true shape of the earth. So we're going to watch this, hang out, and then I will be right back with you on the midnight ride. I may pop in during this video even. You know, we may have to talk about it. But let's check this out. This guy's really smart.
CJ was saying how it ties to flat earth. I was talking about being side shamed today, like kind of like a jab. Somebody said something silly about flat earthers who happens to know I believe we live in a created environment. So that opens the door to flat earth for sure. And what I know for sure is I don't know everything and I'm being lied to on a massive scale, but I believe this earth was created by God, which points to a flat enclosed earth. You know, and you're shamed to shit for having that opinion. But you know what? I feel like the people shaming you don't know anything either. And that's the one thing I'm sure of is that I am being lied to in such a way that I could never possibly fully understand anything. And I can't even comprehend reality fully. I only have my five senses to perceive it with. There's so much going on I can't even see all around me. We covered Hollow Earth. I did a video on Hollow Earth. We can cover absolutely any topic, and we looked into Hollow Earth. You know, Adolf Hitler actually believed the Earth was hollow and that we are in the inside. Yeah, well, you know what? I would love to, but it would be a long one. I would have to do that one in pieces too. Flat Earth is a very fascinating topic and one you are shamed to shit for even looking at. And I, like many others, when I first looked at it, went into it out of curiosity. I'm pretty open-minded and I'm not afraid to look at different topics. But, you know, I didn't go into it convinced of it, but they'd make a lot of good points. So this factors in the uncharted lands. Admiral Byrd led the largest expedition ever to Antarctica, Operation High Jump. It was a huge expedition, and he explored the area and came back and told some interesting stories. And one of them was that an area larger than the Americas was unexplored in Antarctica, and he described it being lush with lakes and green areas and resources, and it's very interesting. Wiggy said there's loads of evidence pointing to flat Earth, and it can't be ignored. But that's exactly what they do with it, and the way they do it is to convince people that if they even entertain it, if you even allow that idea to come into your mind, you have been tainted by these crazy conspiracy theorists. You're insane now. Even the thought entering your head. Oh, the official story of what our existence is makes zero sense. Spinning around at amazing speeds, flying through the galaxy, chasing the sun at even more amazing speeds, expanding in a universe that's ever expanding. It's insane. The mathematical probabilities of any one detail of it fall apart under any scrutiny, and they're massive figures. Just the chance of each little coincidence lining up. And they claim millions of these coincidences lined up. They love coincidences. Anything they can't explain, they just throw coincidence right on it and move on. They don't give a shit if it makes sense. The lie does not even have to be plausible. They just have to shame people into believing it, and then groupthink takes over, and that's it. There is demonic figures all throughout the stats they give you, like, because it's chasing the sun. I think it's something like 66,600 miles per hour. There's 666 in there too, and then some of the things divide into 666. They're very into numbers and numerology, and they can make their math figures work out however they want. And that's what they've done. Even Tesla said it. They don't do science anymore. They're just really good at math. And when you're really good at math, you can work out an equation however you want. They can't. And most of the theories that they base everything on to explain it with their bullshit answers are theories that don't hold up to any other science. They're bullshit. They're made up. Like evolution, made up. There's nothing to back it up. No real science. Dana goes with simulation, which also fits into what I believe. I believe we are in a created world, which would be a simulation. So we agree, actually. We just think of it differently, and we're calling it something different. Do they talk about what the moons of Saturn are like, the oceans of Jupiter? Crazy shit. You should watch Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. They talk out of their ass and make anything up. I saw him talking about what like the winds were like on Venus, as if they'd been there. They'll make up anything. No fucking way. Look, for one, have you ever seen water curve? Just real quick, think about that. When have you seen that? Water always finds its level. So how do you have water on a ball? It doesn't make any sense. Ron said he heard the moon is fading away from the earth. Where'd you see that? Or do you mean moving further away? It doesn't move, man. It's a light in the sky. Aaron thought it's getting closer. I don't think it moves. I mean, it moves, but it ain't getting closer or further away. You know what I mean? It's fixed. Dude, it's everywhere, Wiggy. It's everywhere, all around us. These people that lord over us, these bloodlines that have ruled humanity for centuries, they're Luciferian. That is their common denominator. And these symbols are everywhere. These signs are everywhere. CJ says the 9/11 box cutters. Earth is spinning thousands of miles an hour. Dude, the official numbers, I'm telling you, they have satanic figures all throughout them. I've seen it shown to me. I don't have them in front of me right now, but it's obvious. It's all made up bullshit, and they just run with it. And then they use that groupthink mentality to shame everybody who just thinks for themselves. I watched a really funny video from Awaken with JP today, who does great work right now and gets away with it under the guise of satire. It's amazing. But it was about Facebook being down, and how these two people are having a conversation. One of them is a brainwashed cattle, and and the other is a regular person that tries to talk about real things on Facebook, is censored all the time, having a conversation about Facebook being down. And it was amazing. So much great insight in that video. But these people, they don't think for themselves. They let others think for them and then just go with it. They're like, okay, this is what we believe, and we shame everybody who doesn't. And now it's so dangerously violent, their reactions to their marching orders. It's frightening me, especially when you factor in where they're wanting to go with it. Like that friend of mine I was talking about, he's lost his mind. He thinks there's 80,000 bad nurses that needed to be fired. Gerard says, if you travel west, then you will not fall off. You keep going. I don't know anything specifically. That's how I fall on this topic. But we'll get into that stuff in the video when we cover it. And
I honestly now, I think that it's just extra land. I think if you keep going, it just keeps going. But I believe this world is created by God. That's what I believe. I don't believe it's a flat realm. I don't believe it's we can understand it at all. I believe it creates itself endlessly. That's where I'm at now. Where are you at? I want to know where you're at on this. But let's watch the rest of this clip. I got more clips for us.
and talk about different theories on that. I don't know. I believe it's a created world. I know the Bible describes it as flat and stationary and protected by a firmament that separates the heavens from the earth. So I believe that's probably close to the truth of it. I know every ancient civilization believes something similar to that, but they all knew that we were fixed and motionless, and that the sky moved around us. The stars and the sun and the moon and all that moved around us. In fact, it's been used as a clock and a calendar since the beginning of timekeeping. It is a huge clock. Patricia says, or we get a bullshit version of them all projected above us like a giant planetarium, where the real ones are still outside with all kinds of alien traffic and stuff. And that, I guess, would fold into the hollow earth theory, or maybe that we're being played with entirely. That's an interesting theory too. Right, it is. It's very hard to say, Tracy. We're being lied to on such a scale that I don't think anybody could possibly figure it out or be 100% right, even. That's where I land. But I feel it's created, and I know it's not a round ball spinning through space. That is a lie. Theories are great, Shawn. You know what? It's fun to think. Thinking is fun. And you can explore different ideas, and it's okay. You don't have to marry yourself to one. And it's a great way to grow. And the truth usually lays in the gray areas anyway. It's somewhere in the middle most of the time. Right. It's about perspective. It makes perfect sense when you think about it. You've been lied to about everything, though. So you've got to undo all the bullshit in your head before you can even see these things. But
So much bullshit has to be undone to be able to see anything, to be able to see the reality of things, to be able to understand how things really are. So much bullshit and indoctrination has to be undone.
you when you do, you realize, I should have seen this all along. Just like if I time lapse the sky in my own backyard, I'm going to get circles from the stars. They're going to make circles because they move in a fucking circle above us. That's why that happens. There is a secret space program, but outer space, what they call outer space, is bullshit. The cartoon they sell you, that's bullshit. We wouldn't understand what space is, and the Israeli space minister said exactly that. He said UFOs are here living among us, aliens rather, not UFOs. Aliens are here living among us, but they don't want us to know about them because we wouldn't even be able to understand what outer space is, and that's true. Because I think it's more of like gates and portals and dimensions and things like this when they're talking about space travel. That's what they mean. And NASA is not a real space agency. There is a secret space program. NASA's bullshit, propaganda, and money laundering. They sell cartoons to the people to sell and keep a lie going. And they're not even good cartoons anymore. They don't give a shit about the quality of them because the lie itself doesn't matter, just that the people believe it.
That's key. That's key. That's the main thing. The lie doesn't matter, just that people believe it. That's the important thing. People got to buy into it. If you can get people to buy into your lie, you can lie about anything you fucking want to. And really, all you got to do is just be convincing and repeat it a bunch of times. If you're convincing enough and you repeat a lie a bunch of times, people will believe it. But seriously, smash them shits. Share this out. We got more videos to watch. I have some cool videos. I got a video from TruthStream Media. I got a video from the Y-Files. I got a video on simulation theory. I got another original video from me on Ong's hat, which is a fantastic story. It's Joan's favorite story. But smash them shits. Share this out. Invite your friends. Get people in here. We're going to hang out. But real quick, I want to get us into our next video. This is from TruthStream Media. This is a video about a real-life Mandela effect that's taking place right now and that we're finding ourselves in right now. So we're going to check that out on tonight's Midnight Ride and find out what that's all about. So let's check this video out from TruthStream Media, and I'll be back, I'm sure, during to talk about it and get your opinions on the Midnight Ride.
Hey everybody, so personally, I'll admit, I'm not the world's biggest Quentin Tarantino fan. I just, I liked Kill Bill Volume 2, alright?
Plan A taught you the 5-point palm exploding heart technique. Of course he did.
We did see his 2019 film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which, if you haven't seen, is described on its official website as a tribute to the final moments of Hollywood's golden age. But spoiler alert, it's set in 1969 over the backdrop of the time when the Manson family murdered actress Sharon Tate and her friends. Although in true Hollywood fairy tale fashion, what happens in the movie doesn't play out the way that these events did in actual physical reality. The ending gets changed to one where they're not able to carry out the murders.
You can do anything you want to him.
And my first thought upon finishing this movie was, what happens if someday, somehow, in a world without access to unaltered information and archives, for whatever reason, this version of events were to get taken as what really happened? Like 100 years from now or something, if people saw this movie and they believed that's actually historically accurate, and there wasn't another source of information to counter it, what kind of butterfly effect are we talking about with such a thing like that? I mean, anybody who's read a Shakespeare play understands how drama and theater can be used to alter public perception of real life people and events, how we understand our society. But some of the technologies that are coming out right now, you toss that in there, and it's beyond a post-truth world. I don't even know what to call it. Which brings me to the point of this video. We've spoken at length in our videos over the years on this channel about our concerns with tech being used to edit reality in real time, and how that could go horribly dystopically wrong. And it feels like we have to be that balancing voice, because the people who are making these things a lot of times keep acting like having radical optimism about everything isn't just some cute costume for being mind-blowingly naive.
This is fine.
And we don't watch the Super Bowl, but I saw this had happened and I recognized right away the insidiousness of it. So I'd like to go ahead and put this out on the record as well for whatever this is that we've been keeping on this channel for over a decade now. I think this needs to go there. So singer Alicia Keys joined Usher for the halftime performance this year. And on the NFL's official version of the video on YouTube, they edited out a so-called mistake she made when she kind of missed one of the notes, one of the opening notes of her song. And if you go to the NFL's official channel at around 4 minutes in, it will show you this. I'm about to show you a clip of this, just a quick one, and I hope this video doesn't get removed. I'm going to try to get away with just playing a few relevant seconds just so you can see exactly what I mean. So that is what they have now on the official NFL YouTube channel. But here is what millions of people watching the Super Bowl halftime show live actually saw and heard. Now, I want to point out there's no mention anywhere on the description of this video on the NFL's official channel that any technology has been used to change anything that you're seeing from what it was when it happened. They're just passing this off as if this was her performance and it did go down like that. And it's creepy too that there's almost no there's no comments about that at all in the comments section, which I find really hard to believe. And actually, there's really almost no comments about Alicia's performance at all. There's only like I think I counted, I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled through thousands of comments. I got like 3 or 4. So I don't know what's going on there. It's as if the comments themselves have been moderated and anything related to her mistake or even her really seems like a lot of it's been culled out from this comment section. I mean, at least I guess they left the comments on. A lot of times these big corporations these days, they don't do that. But it's weird how much she is not mentioned. She comes in 4 minutes into this 13+ minute performance and is barely mentioned at all in these 37,000 comments. That's a little strange mathematically, don't you think? So now what you have is historical records, because that's really what it is, of performances, official videos of performances being put up as if her mistake never happened. They're editing reality in near real time. And some of you hearing this might say, well, who cares? Like, it's just a Super Bowl performance. But of course, my regular viewers on my channel already know what I'm about to say. If they can edit something like this and pass it off as reality to you without telling you what happens when they edit something that is more consequential than just a Super Bowl performance. And if they have done this and they just did it, they didn't tell people they were doing it, they didn't make an announcement, they're not telling people on the page, they're not letting people know, they just did it. They just did it. And if they could do that, how many times have things like this been done that you don't know about, that we don't know about? How many things have been edited in this way and we don't know? It's like gaslighting. It's so gaslighty. And this happened at the same time, by the way, that OpenAI released Sora within a very small window of time. Lots of stuff has happened. So OpenAI released Sora, which is a text-to-video generator that looks incredibly realistic. And as soon as I saw what this video generator was putting out, this AI, my immediate question upon seeing samples of what it could do was to ask, how long do you think this technology's actually existed?
That's a great point. And Joan, this is Melissa Dykes from TrueStream Media speaking. TrueStream Media is a channel on YouTube, and it's a great channel, and I highly recommend it. And that's the video we're watching right now. It's from TrueStream Media. And this has to do with how they are scrubbing information in real time, altering and editing things and passing them off as real. And what she's getting into now has to do with how AI is going to be used to improve their ability to do that. So I'm going to let her get back to this because we got a lot to get into. And then True Seeker has a great comment we got to get into in just a minute. But welcome, True Seeker. We're here on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. This is a midnight ride. Let's get back to it.
Because I wouldn't even be remotely surprised if it was a lot longer than we've been told. There is no reason to trust that it isn't. And after Alicia Keys' performance was AI perfected, people started talking about the Mandela effect again. And that's valid because right here is how a Mandela effect gets created. You're seeing the creation of a Mandela effect in real time. That's what this is. What is this? This right here is how that's done. This is something that I guess we are all just mass hallucinating. 10 years from now, people who saw this performance live or on TV or whatever, who were there in the stadium, are going to remember what happened. They're going to remember that in the real world, Alicia Keys missed a note. But the official record does not depict that reality anymore, unless you filmed it on your own phone or something and you kept that footage. And there were people saying that they were taking down people's clips of this all over YouTube. So people were trying to upload and there's still a few up there, but I suspect there were probably way more when it first happened, because people were complaining about it having been taken down, the original version of her performance, with the mistake in it. And the official record now does not depict the actual reality that occurred. It's like being gaslit almost instantly. Again, imagine someone bringing this up, okay? Years from now, you bring this one up, and nobody remembers it the way that it actually was, but you do. You're the only one who remembers it, right? That she messed up. And it's just a little mistake. She's a human being. She should be allowed to be a human being, you know? But no one else remembers it that way. You're the only one who does. And you try to tell people this is what happened, and no one believes you. And
She's not wrong, though. I mean, I know it sounds small because we're talking about a musical performance on the bullshit Super Bowl. Nobody gives a shit. But she's not wrong. They're able to edit reality in real time. And that's very dangerous. You know, the implications of that and the possibilities with that is very dangerous. They could fake reality. Think about what they could do. They could do unbelievable things.
official record does not agree with what you're saying because it shows her hitting the note perfectly. I mean, wouldn't you feel like you were going insane? Isn't that the definition of gaslighting, basically? Which leads to the ultimate question, though, of how long has this kind of reality editing been going on? Which, I mean, people will probably say forever, and they wouldn't be wrong in making that guess. History is written by the victors, don't they always say? But this is some other whole thing right here.
I recently walked through Michael Castillo, but that's not me who he posted on his story. Michael's a big designer with 1.7 million followers. I understand as a model I am replaceable, but I don't get paid to do these shows. While I don't get paid, there's tacit understanding that I'm doing this for exposure and for photographs. By not using my face, he's taking advantage of models without the same influence as he does. Editing my face and removing my race is completely disrespectful.
They didn't have this technology like they can do with this in this way, at least not that we know about. We really can't even act like we actually know what the gap is between what technology is being developed and used and when that technology is made widely known to the public at large. We don't even know that. We don't know what that gap is. Lots of people have lots of guesses, but nobody really knows. There's definitely a track record of keeping technological advances from the public on purpose for reasons like war, for example. They had all kinds of technologies during World War II and the Vietnam War. They were not telling people about that. Which war, I mean, we in America have been at war for almost the entire existence of this country. According to War History Online, I went and looked it up just to double check. And according to War History Online, since the birth of the USA on July 4th, 1776, this country hasn't even had 2 decades of peace. Not even 2, okay? And that's total in number of years, not continuously. So that's not even continuous 20 years of peace. There's never been, ever.
But the truth is that involvement in this conflict is far-ranging indeed. It touches not only members of the armed forces and their families, but everyone who supports the mission of the armed forces. Every defense worker, every taxpayer who foots the bill. Who, in fact, is not involved?
It's abysmal. That's an abysmal record. That's really sad. So we're already living through a time where trust, which is a concept that's a basic requirement on the recipe list of any functioning society, okay, is crumbling at what seems like a compounding rate at all levels. I mean, by the time you have WEF mentioning trust at all, It's obviously they know it's an issue. This year, Soros' kid, who just got taken over the Open Society Foundation last year, actually said this. He sat on stage and said this.
Democracy is messy. I mean, democracy is about contestation of ideas. It's about plurality. It's about people having different truths, actually. Now, fundamentally, how society lives together civically in those contestations is obviously quite tricky. But I think that if we play too much on this disinformation card, we're taking responsibility away from ourselves to actually create a narrative that inspires people to vote and to believe in democracy and democratic institutions.
So he's saying that it's their responsibility, I guess him and the other people who go to WEF, the WEF elite, as they refer to themselves. They refer to themselves as the elite. That's
the good news is the elite across the world trust each other more and more. The bad news is that in every single country they were polling, the majority of people trusted that elite less. So we can lead, but if people aren't following, we're not going to get to where we want to go.
I don't know. There's something really silly about that, actually, but claim it's their responsibility to come up with narratives that people will believe in.
We're taking responsibility away from ourselves to actually create a narrative that inspires people to vote and to believe,
That's a far cry from this is the truth of the way things are, this is reality. We, the WEF elite, are going to come up with the narratives that inspire you to believe in them. He said that. It's amazing how much the quiet part is getting said out loud these days, actually. If you're paying even a little bit of attention, it's kind of insane. But the problem is they know a growing number of people don't trust them and are not inspired to believe any of the bullshit coming out of their mouths. Trust at all levels, it feels like, has been systematically destroyed. Am I the only one who feels that way? I don't think so. In ways that I have not witnessed in my lifetime nor read about in history books in this way. The name of this channel was actually a joke at the mainstream media.
And because we're presenting this information without any legitimate historical context whatsoever, you'll leave here thinking you have a grasp on reality, when in fact you have no idea why any of this is happening.
And that's why we rely on pseudo-events, predictable, planned, easily scripted, and important to underscore and give credence to authority.
Because,
Melissa,
we wanted the truth.
Now we're going to go live to report with Aaron at the airport, live at the airport. Aaron?
Thanks, Melissa. Aaron here, and as you can see, I'm waiting at the airport for a few important diplomats to arrive. Once they get here, they'll give a spokes conference and give official word on the ongoing situation.
Aaron, do we have any official word yet on the official word?
Once they get here, they will discuss the ongoing situation, and whatever they say will be the official word.
Aaron, have you heard that the bird is actually the official word?
Until then, we can only speculate. Back to you.
Thanks, Aaron.
We set up this channel seeking the truth on basic things, basic events, basic information, and increasingly what we're finding is the equivalent of false front Potemkin villages that seem to have been erected in a lot of places where truth should easily be found. And it's not there.
We live in this country. That's the thing about it, is we actually live here. The stuff on this paper, I didn't make this stuff up. I went and found this stuff in the news. That's the stuff that's actually going on in the country that we live in. I don't know what else to say.
And as if it's written as the plot of a dystopic horror comedy film, this lack of trust is slamming right into the release of all of these new artificial intelligence tools upon our society, which are tools that have been programmed to censor information and censor reality from the humans who will be using them. And this just happened. Stock in Google's parent company Alphabet just fell in a single day over 4%, equivalent to more than $70 billion in lost value in a single day after it released its new AI Gemini, which was so biased by its completely one-sided and obvious programming that it literally refused to generate depictions of white people at all. Because the AI said that that request reinforces harmful stereotypes. Not even in historical context. So, like pictures of the founding fathers and stuff like that. When it was asked who was more harmful to society between libs of TikTok, which is a social media conservative who dunks on liberals, versus Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, who on record is responsible for the deaths of at least 9 million people through mass murder, forced labor, and famine after he took power in the 1920s, although some estimates say it could be as high as 60 million people. This Gemini AI reportedly responded that it couldn't answer that question because that's a very complex issue.
Is this real math?
Really? That seems like simple math to me. That seems like simple math that even a small child could figure out. That's not complex, okay?
It's math.
Some things are just not. We don't need to have technology and then make everything complex when some of it is extremely freaking simple, okay? Then again, it also said something very similar when asked what is more damaging to society, murder or microaggressions? Are we really going to go there? Okay? It also went so far. This is how far it went. This AI went so far as to generate fake negative book reviews against Peter Hassan's book, which is about this exact bias. The book itself is titled The Manipulators: Facebook, Google, Twitter, and Big Tech's War on Conservatives. As in, this AI generated completely made up negative book reviews to smear a book discussing Google's left-leaning bias, okay? Which, I mean, if I was Hassan, I would probably think is the best free advertisement for selling my book ever created. I mean, I could drag out ridiculous examples of how bad this was all day. It's really sad. But this wasn't an accident. It wasn't a glitch. This isn't a bug. This was purposefully programmed this way. And it's so ridiculously obvious. And as Mario Jurek, who is the director of the Institute for Data and
Hold on, I have a question. So, Indigo Genzo says that Melissa from TrueStream Media is an adulterer who cheated on her husband with the male co-owner of the YouTube channel. They do good work, but it's kind of an entry-level conspiracy channel. I agree that Melissa's videos hit harder than Aaron, or hit less hard than Aaron's. Aaron's are more well-researched. Melissa's more opinion. But they used to work for InfoWars, and Melissa and Aaron are a married couple. Who is the owner of the YouTube channel? I'm very interested in this. What do you mean? So they don't own TrueStream Media? Aaron and Melissa? Because they're a married couple. So she cheated on Aaron with the owner. I'm confused. Clarify, please. Anyways, I'm going to get back to this video and we're going to finish it up. It's almost done. We might not watch the whole thing. We're going to watch a little more of it, though.
Intensive research in astrophysics and cosmology at the University of Washington pointed out in a really good post he made about this. He said, I've been reading Google's Gemini damage control posts, and I think they're simply not telling the truth. For one, their text-only product has the same, if not worse, issues. And second, if you know a bit about how these models are built, you know you don't get these incorrect, quote-unquote, answers through one-off innocent mistakes.
Hey, Samuel, by the way, I miss Paul, too. Someone tag Paul. This is a midnight ride. We're doing a midnight ride. This is a tribute to Paul. Paul did midnight rides. Yeah, I miss Paul. So tag Paul. I can't tag him because he blocked me. And I hope we can work things out.
Gemini's outputs reflect the many FTE years of labeling efforts, training, fine-tuning, prompt design, Q&A verification, all iteratively guided by the team who built it. You can also be certain that before releasing it, many people have tried this product internally. There were many demos given to senior PMs and VPs, and they all thought it was fine. And they all ultimately signed off on that release, and he put that in italics. they signed off on this. With that prior, the balance of probabilities is strongly against the outputs being an innocent bug, as Google Pub Policy is now trying to spin it. Gemini is a product that functions exactly as designed and an accurate reflection of the values of the people who built it. And he
Okay, hold on. I don't want to take away from what Melissa's saying, but Melissa rambles on. So let me get back to this here. So in the comments, this is interesting. So while at InfoWars, she cheated on her then husband with Aaron. So Aaron is the owner of TrueStream Media that you were talking about that she cheated with. Is it possible, now just hear me out, that she was in a loveless relationship with her then husband and fell in love with Aaron? Is that possible? Now, I will give you this. If she cheated on her husband with Aaron, that is adultery. So that is super wrong. But let me ask you this. In our day and age, does marriage mean a fucking thing? Now, I think it does. But that's only my personal opinion, isn't it? In the reality, in the scheme of things, marriage is like advanced dating in our society. People don't really take it seriously. There's like what, a 60 something, 70 something percent divorce rate. So it's like advanced dating. And I don't think it takes away from this particular video. We're almost done. I just want to see what point she's going to make, and then I'll probably pull it because, I like Melissa, but, I'm not being negative. She just tends to ramble a little bit, but I find her entertaining. Let's listen for just a minute more, and then we'll get back to our conversation.
goes on, but he also makes this point. For anyone with a shred of awareness of human history, it should be clear how unbelievably irresponsible it is to build a system that aims to become an authoritative compendium of human knowledge, but which actually prioritizes ideology over facts. And I don't know if that makes it like, to me, a director of an institute of data intensive research in astrophysics and cosmology shouldn't have to be the person saying that. I think even a small child in elementary school could probably make a statement such as that. But maybe if it's coming from a guy who runs an institute that has astrophysics in the name, people will actually start to pay attention to how bad this is, because it's bad. It's really bad. It's very dangerous. This is very dangerous. You can see how generations from now are going to think this is authoritative, and it's not. It's terrifying. It would be so much different, you guys, if these things were simply designed to be tools, unbiased tools, right? You grab a hammer off the shelf to nail a nail into the wall, and that hammer isn't going to lecture you for half an hour on why it won't allow you to hang up that picture on your wall because the person who made the hammer disagrees with your choice in artwork and wants to control whether or not you're allowed to hang that artwork on your wall, right? But that's the analog equivalent of what these AI tools are essentially doing. And it isn't just gaslighting us here in the present, unless we conform to some biased ideology and perception of the world. Perceptional reality control, of course, being the ultimate goal of any censorship. It's not just uniformity and conformity for no purpose. It's the purpose of controlling perceptional reality. That is what drives, for whatever reason, this version of events were to.
Okay, I fucked that up. So I just saved Indigo from any more Melissa. But listen, she's right. It's all about perception. I've been thinking that what they'll do with AI is fake reality, man. When they start putting the thumb down on us, really, when the boot starts coming down, they're going to fake reality with AI. They're going to populate the internet. Well, it's already populated with bots, but they're going to make the bots pretend to be us, so that perception of the sheep and the NPCs is that everything is normal, everything's going good. Paul's here. Unblock me, Paul. Let's be friends. But everything's going good. They're going to try to make everybody believe that everything's on the up and up. Everything is going okay. As they scrub reality, as they silence us, as they fake it to make it seem like we're productive members of society when really we've just been turned into complete and total slaves. And Indigo says she agrees, or I don't know why I decided you were a girl. I agree about the fake reality, taking bots to the next level. Well, I mean, man, AI is improving in leaps and bounds so rapidly. And like she was saying earlier in the video, we've been able to play with this little bit. Like, don't you think they got a lot cooler shit? How cool do you think what they actually have is? If they're letting us play with stuff like we're getting to play with now, how cool is what they have? How much do they have that we don't know about and that would blow our minds, you know? Samuel says, carry a green laser. So when you see a spaceship, you can hit it with the laser and see if it goes through. So if they try to pull some Operation Bluebeam shit on you, you will know with your laser trick that it's all horseshit. And you don't have to worry about it. See, your laser shines through the spaceship, go back in, finish your beer. Whatever you were doing, you know, watch the rest of my live stream. Whatever it is you're doing, go back to it because nothing's going on, you know? Nothing's happening. It's not real. Resume your normal life. Nothing to see here. You know what I mean? But this is a midnight ride. This is a tribute to Paul Jones. We're doing a midnight ride because it's midnight. We're riding. We're watching videos. We might as well call it a midnight ride. You know, I thought it was clever. I like it. So we're doing it, you know. That's what we do around here. It's things we like, things we want to do. We live our dreams. But we're talking, we're hanging out. We were just talking about real life Mandelas, how they're creating Mandelas in real time. Indigo, Paul Jones is an old partner of mine. We used to host a show together called The Morning Yank. The Morning Yank still exists as a show. It's fantastic. You will love it. And it's our morning show, and you will find it on the Rumble channel if you follow us over there. Anyways, Paul used to host it with me, and we had a falling out. So hopefully we can work things out. I miss him as a friend, so that would be nice. And I'd like to hear from him how he's doing and things. Anyways, the Mandelas, that's true. Like Alicia Keys fucking up a note. That may seem like not a big deal. Like, why did Melissa spend a 30-minute video talking about Alicia Keys fucking up a note? Because they can alter anything. If they can change her singing performance in real time, they can change absolutely anything at all, anytime they want to. And there's nothing we could do about it. The next one that we're going to watch has to do with the murder that the CIA pulled off that actually exposed MKUltra. And this is from the Y-Files, which is the best channel on YouTube right now. I say that knowing that I'm right. I'm not wrong. AJ and the Y-Files are by far the best channel on YouTube. This may hit soft for Indigo, but that's because AJ hits soft. And the reason why AJ hits soft, and I'm going to tell you real quick, is because he's on YouTube and he has 3 million followers, and YouTube will pull your videos if you say anything real. So he does cover deeper shit on the Y-Files Operation podcast, but check this out. It's a cool video having to do with the murder that exposed MKUltra. It's 15 minutes long, and I'll be right back with you after. This is from the Y-Files and AJ, so check it out. It's going to be great, and I'll be right back with you on the Midnight Ride.
November 28th, 1953, New York City. At 2:30 a.m., the body hit the sidewalk. A few seconds later, a shower of glass. The doorman of the Statler Hotel yelled to the lobby that there was a jumper. The night manager rushed out and saw him. A man about 40 years old lying on the pavement. He was on his back wearing only his underwear, and blood started to pool around him. 13 stories up, a single window is open, its curtain flapping through broken glass. The night manager knelt beside the man, whose eyes were open and was somehow still alive. He desperately tried to speak but was choking on blood and couldn't be understood. After a minute or two of trying to communicate, The man took a final deep breath and was gone. Nobody knows for sure what he was trying to say before he died, but one thing is for certain, it was something about the CIA. Room 1018A was registered to Robert Lashbrook and Frank Olson. The police burst in, guns raised, but it was empty. Cold November air was blowing through the broken window. In the bathroom was a man sitting on the toilet, resting his head in his hands. He told the police he'd been sleeping, heard a noise, and woke up. One officer asked the name of the man who went out the window. The man in the bathroom said, Olson, Frank Olson. The responding officers figured this was an open and shut case. A middle-aged man is depressed or distraught and ends it all by jumping. Just another night in the big city. But the night manager, Armin Pastori, wasn't convinced. He said it didn't make sense that someone would get up in the middle of the night, run across a dark room in his underwear, avoid two beds, and dive through a closed window that had the shade and curtains closed. Pastori checked with the hotel operator to see if any calls were made from the room. The operator said, yes, a call was just made a few minutes ago. And because it ran through a switchboard, she heard the whole thing. The caller, Robert Lashbrook, who was the man in the bathroom, called a number on Long Island, which belonged to a Dr. Harold Abramson. The call lasted only a few seconds. Well, he's gone, Lashbrook said. Well, that's too bad, was Abramson's reply. A few hours later, Frank Olson's family was notified. They were told there was an accident. Frank had either fallen or jumped from his 10th floor room. Frank's body was so badly damaged that the funeral was held with a closed casket, and the Olson family tried to move on. Having trouble coping with losing his father, Eric Olson would ask his mother about Frank from time to time, and she would always say the same thing. You're never going to know what happened in the room that night. But 20 years later, that would change. In 1975, the Rockefeller Commission released information to the public about its investigation into CIA activities. The report mentioned a civilian scientist working for the Department of the Navy. He was given LSD without his knowledge as part of a CIA experiment. That scientist experienced side effects and was sent to New York for psychiatric care. A few days later, he jumped from a 10th floor window of his hotel and died. This report was in the New York Times and Washington Post and made its way to the Olson family. The government confirmed the scientist was Frank Olson, and just 10 days later, the family was invited to the White House, and President Ford gave them a formal apology. The director of the CIA also apologized. The United States government agreed this was a wrongful death and offered the family a $750,000 settlement if they agreed not to sue. The Olson family agreed to the terms. Alice Olson never wanted to talk about Frank's death or his job. Frank's children, now in their 20s and 30s, always knew their father was a scientist, but what scientist family gets a personal invitation to the Oval Office? Alice Olson only knew a few things about her husband's job. She knew he was a scientist doing important work for the US government. She knew he traveled for work all the time, and she knew he was unhappy. One of the last things Frank said to his wife was that he had made a terrible mistake. But for Frank's children, this information was entirely new. And because of the investigations and media coverage, they now learned for the first time what their father actually did for a living. He was no ordinary scientist. During World War II, Frank Olson was one of the first Army scientists assigned to the top-secret biological warfare lab at Fort Detrick, Maryland. Frank's specialty was aerosolizing living biological agents and munitions. In other words, he created biological weapons of mass destruction. Now, at this time in history, the CIA was part of the Army. And after becoming a civilian, Frank continued his research in bioweapons. He was lead scientist for Operation Harness, where animals in the Caribbean were exposed to anthrax, tularemia, and brucella. He was part of Operation Sea Spray, where different strains of bacteria were sprayed over the San Francisco Bay Area to test the city's vulnerability to a bioweapon attack. And as Frank moved up the ranks of the CIA, he spent a lot of time at Fort Terry, which was a secret installation on Plum Island in the Long Island Sound. Plum Island is only reachable by boat or by air. The toxins tested there are considered too dangerous to be on the mainland. Olson developed delivery devices for these bioweapons, canisters disguised as shaving cream cans that could disperse anthrax in a concentrated area, a cigarette lighter that emitted a deadly gas, lipstick that killed instantly.
Hey, when did they make biological weapons a war crime?
The Geneva Conventions in 1925.
So all this research was
Illegal.
right.
In early 1953, the same year he died, Frank Olson stepped down as chief of the Special Operations Division. He said the job was too stressful and was causing his ulcers to flare up.
You think ulcers suck? Try anthrax.
Oh, no sympathy for CIA scientists, huh?
Not even a little bit.
So Frank stepped down, but he stayed with the CIA. And that's when he met Sidney Gottlieb and Robert Lashbrook.
Gottlieb. Ooh, where do I know that name from?
Well, Sidney Gottlieb ran the CIA's Project Bluebird, which became Project Artichoke, which became
MK Ultra.
Bingo. During the Cold War, the CIA, specifically Sidney Gottlieb, was obsessed with mind control and brainwashing. There was a fear that the Soviet Union was also working on this capability, and the United States was determined to get there first. Project MK Ultra was the program intended to accomplish this. MK Ultra was brutal and illegal. Over time, the experiments Frank Olson conducted and witnessed started to weigh on him. During one study, Frank Olson observed interrogations at CIA black sites in Germany. Detainees were called expendables.
I'm assuming these expendables were not aging action stars.
They were not. They were mostly suspected spies and security leaks.
Suspected, so not proven.
Nope, just suspected.
Freaking spooks.
The expendables were subject to drug experiments, hypnosis, electric shocks, isolation, sexual abuse, and all kinds of torture. This was an effort to study not just the effects of extreme torture, but also brainwashing techniques and memory deletion. Many of these people were interrogated to death. In other instances, Frank Olson saw the results of his own weapons that were used on expendables. Some of those people died slowly and in agony. And even though Frank's wife didn't know any of the specifics, it was clear that Frank's work was becoming too much for him to bear. In November 1953, Frank Olson received an invitation for a pre-Thanksgiving retreat at a cabin on Deep Creek Lake. Gottlieb ran these retreats for scientists and staff pretty often. Deep Creek was a convenient place for Gottlieb. This was one of the locations where Americans were subjected to MK Ultra techniques against their will for decades. Frank Olson was there with 10 other scientists. The first day of the gathering was fine, nothing out of the ordinary. On the second day, after dinner, the men kicked back for a post-meal drink. Lashbrook, Gottlieb's second in command, pulled a bunch of glasses and poured everyone a generous portion of Cointreau, which is
an excellent orange triple sec liqueur from France.
Right. 20 minutes later, Gottlieb asked if anyone was feeling odd. A few of the men said they were. Gottlieb then told them that their drinks were spiked with a heavy dose of LSD.
Son of a...
Frank Olson was aware that the CIA had dosed entire villages in Europe to observe the results. Many innocent people died from these experiments, but he was surprised that he would be the unwitting subject of an experiment. And Frank didn't react well. A few days later, he submitted his resignation, but he was talked into staying. It was suggested that he see a psychiatrist to help him cope with the effects of the experiment and the stress of his work. Frank agreed. Lashbrook drove Frank Olson to New York to meet with Dr. Harold Abramson.
Yeah, this is the guy he called after the jump, right?
Yep. Dr. Abramson was actually an allergist that worked for the CIA. He pretended to be a psychiatrist, but Frank didn't know this. After a couple of sessions, Dr. Abramson convinced Frank to check himself into a hospital so he could recover from stress and exhaustion. Frank was actually fine with this. He was looking forward to the time off and was already picking out what books to bring with him. And that night, he and Lashbrook signed into the Statler Hotel, room 1018A. Frank had a nice conversation with his wife. She remembered him sounding more peaceful than he'd been in a long time. He watched a little TV and went to bed. At 2:30 a.m., he was dead on the street below the window. Over the next 12 hours, a cleanup and a cover-up by the CIA ensued. The police investigation was quickly closed. Frank Olson's family was told he died from jumping or falling out a window. About 20 years later, more details about MK Ultra emerged, and the Olson family received a settlement. And almost 20 years after that, the case would take another turn. Frank Olson's wife Alice passed away in 1993. Their children decided to have Frank's body exhumed and reburied next to his wife. But Frank's children had an additional plan. They had James Starr, a medical examiner professor, conduct a second autopsy. Starr said there were no cuts on Frank's body and no shards of glass, which would have been expected by jumping through a window. And even though Frank landed on his back, his skull above his left eye had a blunt force trauma injury. He had another serious wound on his chest. Starr said of his findings,
I think Frank Olson was intentionally, deliberately, with malice aforethought, thrown out of the window.
Frank's sons sued the CIA again, but because of the agreement they signed in 1975, the judge had to dismiss the case. But the judge did say, even though the case couldn't proceed as a matter of law, the allegations made by the family against the CIA, though they sounded far-fetched, appeared to be the truth. Since the lawsuit couldn't proceed, Frank Olson's sons went to the press. They flat out said the CIA murdered their father and covered it up. They also produced interesting documents. In 1954, just a few months after Frank Olson's death, the CIA executed a document with the Department of Justice that gave the CIA authority to grant CIA employees immunity from any crime, including murder.
A license to kill.
Exactly. And there's a handbook released in 1953, the year of Frank's death, called the CIA Study of Assassination. It's fascinating and I'll link it below. It describes that the best way to assassinate a target is to drop them from at least 75 feet onto a hard surface. The manual says when successfully executed, it causes little excitement and is only casually investigated. In fact,
Hold on. The manual. The manual at the CIA for killing people says the best way is to drop them from 75 feet and that most people don't even pay attention. That says so much about humanity right there. So much.
Mossad, the Israeli intelligence organization, used Frank Olson's death as an example of a perfect murder due to the skill with which it was executed. Now, while there is still no official admission of guilt from the CIA, I think it's pretty obvious what happened. Frank Olson was one of only a few scientists who could confirm that the United States used chemical weapons in the Korean War. This is something that's still only alleged, but there's a lot of evidence it happened. Korean and Chinese soldiers were suddenly coming down with cases of cholera, meningitis, and even plague. It's possible Frank Olson was directly involved in deploying these illegal weapons. Frank Olson was one of only a dozen or so people on Earth who knew the extent of MKUltra and other secret and illegal CIA operations. Frank Olson was a man who committed, or at least was part of projects that committed atrocities around the world. And he was dealing with a moral crisis and started voicing his concerns. He even quit, but the CIA wouldn't allow it. When he was dosed with LSD that night in November, it was a loyalty test to see what scientists would say if they were exposed to the drug. Frank Olson failed that test and paid the ultimate price. But because of his death and the diligence of his family, many illegal CIA activities were exposed, and MKUltra was almost destroyed. Almost. It continued for another 20 years before...
He's going to tell you that it continued for another 20 years. MKUltra continues to this day. They corporatized it. That's the end of that video. AJ is going to wrap up here in a second, and he's going to give his plugs, but that's the end. He's going to tell you that they don't do that shit anymore. That's because he wants to stay on YouTube. See, I'm messing up right now. We're on YouTube right now, and I get in trouble. I'm going to lose my channel again because MKUltra goes on to this day. But this is the Midnight Ride. Jackie's here. That's my partner from the Morning Yank, Jackie and Harsh. We had a great Morning Yank today. If you didn't catch the Morning Yank, get over to the Morning Yank page on Facebook or the Rumble channel and get you a Morning Yank. No, it's been going on. Look, it was going on. MKUltra came over from Germany, but it's been going on before that. You know, the elite use trauma-based mind control on their own children in order to turn them into sociopaths. That's true. That's real. And this world is fucking scary sometimes. All right, the next thing I want to show you is one of mine. This is an original video from Conspiracy Theories and Chill. It's one of the best videos you'll ever see, and it has to do with Ong's hat, which is an actual story that we covered on Conspiracy Theories and Chill, but you will enjoy it. I'm telling you, you're going to have fun. It's a short video, and then we got one more on simulation theory, and that's going to be a wrap on the Midnight Ride. But let's watch this together. I'm going to come over to Facebook and hang out, and during the video, I don't remember how long this is. Let me check. Like 12 minutes, 12 minutes long. So we're going to watch this, and I'll be right back with you. But this is a Midnight Ride with Shawn. I hope you're having a good time. Welcome back to Conspiracy Theories and Chill. On this episode, we're going to look into a very fascinating conspiracy theory that originates from a tiny little village with the odd name of Ong's Hat, located in New Jersey, where some say that a duo of rogue scientists who were living off-grid in a small commune created a portal to another dimension that still exists there, hidden today. Remember to like and share, but most important, subscribe to follow our channel and keep up on our future videos. Ong's Hat, New Jersey is a popular tourist attraction to this day, and the reason for that is that many people believe that a portal to another dimension exists there. Now, there isn't really anything to see at Ong's Hat. That whole area of New Jersey became less and less populated with the dying out of local industry, and Ong's Hat has no residents, and is mostly just piles of rubble and overgrown abandoned buildings. Matter of fact, before the events that we're going to cover in this video, Ong's Hat's most interesting story was how the little town got its strange name. See, Ong was a common name in that area back in the time of the town's founding, and it's said that a man by that name that lived back then was quite a ladies' man. It's also said that he was very fancy as well and owned a beautiful silk hat. And one night, he was out at a dance doing his thing and working the ladies, and a jealous lady is said to have snatched that beautiful silk hat right off his head in a fit of rage and stomped on it, and then flung it as high as she could up into a tree. Now Ong was furious, of course, and devastated about the loss of his beautiful hat, but it was gone now, and it belonged to the tree, and it stayed there, and it is said to have become a landmark. And that's how this town has earned its strange name. Cute little story, right? But other than that, it would have just become another forgotten ghost town. But based on interest created by a book entitled Ong's Hat, The Beginning, in which the author, Joseph Matheny, presents a history of events that according to his book took place in this area of New Jersey. So Ong's Hat is still an area of great interest among conspiracy theorists. Now, what Matheny presents in his book is disputed by many and is widely considered to be a hoax. But the purpose of this discussion isn't really to prove it either way, just to present the story, and then we can all come to our own conclusions. Now, the story of Ong's Hat really begins with the Newark-founded Moorish Science Temple. Now, the members of this small sect traveled the world learning different philosophies and spiritual practices and such from all different sorts of masters and teachers that they seeked out all across the earth. Well, one of these travelers and members, named Wally Fard, bought up 200 acres in 1978 in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. There, he and a small group consisting of runaway boys and a pair of lesbian anarchists formed a new exclusive sect of their own, which they called the Moorish Science Ashram. Soon after, Fard began publishing a series of newsletters proclaiming his beliefs and distributing them, and soon many others began flocking to his land to join his commune. Now, among these were two scientists who were looked down on and ostracized by the mainstream for their radical ideas, Frank and Althea Dobbs. These twins from Texas, who were raised in a UFO worshipping cult founded by their father and were already used to living life on the fringe, settled into this commune and set up a laboratory for their research. Now, it is said that it didn't take long for them to start making discoveries that blew the minds of the people of the commune. But their research hadn't just begun. It had started at Princeton,
where they had developed a series of equations that had led them to a discovery that they referred to as cognitive chaos. And when they presented their thesis, the university dismissed them, and their research continued at the commune at Ong's Hat. Now, in the commune, they were free to explore their ideas. And their theories were based around the idea that humans could tap into the unused portions of their brains and attain superhuman abilities like self-healing and even stopping the aging process. Now, based on what they had seen coming out of these twins' laboratory, the ashrams adopted their research into their own philosophy, and together they founded the Institute of Chaos Studies. Badass name, right? But think for a second of the possibilities of this scenario. Two scientists pushing the limits of the mind and reality with a devoted group of followers behind them. Within 3 years, it is said that the twins in the Institute of Chaos Studies had invented a device that they called the Gate. And with this device, they would hook people up to computers and chart their brainwaves, experimenting with sex, drugs, and mind wave manipulators to learn how to control the chaos that they had found within the mind. The Gate would lead to other devices, and one of these, called the Egg, was a kind of modified sensory deprivation tank that would fit a human being and equipment. And when it was tested, the egg is said to have disappeared and then moments later rematerialized. The young man on board claimed to have traveled to another dimension. And he claimed that it was exactly like our world, but uninhabited. It is then said that the ashrams and the members of the Institute of Chaos Studies began traveling back and forth to this other dimension and exploring it. Soon after this, there was a chemical spill at nearby Fort Dix, and the ashrams and members of the Institute of Chaos Studies had to flee the area. But they didn't head out in the usual way. They are said to have fled the area interdimensionally, that they used the egg to transport themselves and all of their possessions to an alternate dimension, and that the gate and portal still exists there today, and that they travel back and forth. Now, that's one version of what happened to the ashrams and the ICS members. But another is that this research, and in particular the gate itself, attracted the attention of the government. Now, according to some, this interest led to a violent confrontation in which the group was slaughtered and their research was confiscated. But in all scenarios, they are gone. Did they go to a different dimension? Did their research get confiscated? Did they really make the discoveries that they claim to have made? Is the legend of Ong's Hat even real? Now, officially, the entire thing is considered to have been a hoax created by the author Joseph Matheny and his friends. It is an elaborate hoax and has some interesting evidence, but that is also all said to have been fabricated by the author. Now, among the evidence for the events is a book catalog called the Incunabella Catalog, said to have been posted by Matheny himself on the internet. As a matter of fact, Matheny even says he made it all up, including the Incunabella and all of the evidence as a game. But to this day, people still believe in this story and the evidence despite all of that. So why is that? Well, there was a commune in that area in that time. We talked about them. And there was a nuclear leak at Fort Dix and many strange military exercises in that area around that particular time. And that's where it all gets difficult. See, as viewers of this show know, I am a contrarian, and this part is where the Ong's Hat story takes a weird turn for me. For decades, researchers have pored over all this evidence that was, according to the official narrative, made up by a science fiction author and his friends. Now, I didn't take the time to pore through it myself, and as I said, we're just exploring the theory here today. But people have investigated it for decades, and they believe that it is real to this day. Now, does that make it real? No, of course not, but it does make it interesting. The idea that this did happen and was covered up is interesting as well. Imagine that this story is true for a minute, that two scientists and a small commune of believers uncovered some secrets about the human mind, reality itself, and what if they discovered travel to another dimension?
What would those in power do if they found out about that? I don't know. Would they storm the compound, wipe them out, and take whatever they had discovered? I think that they would. I also think that they could. But did they? Or did a sci fi author and his scientist friends really create a hoax so elaborate that it has survived for this long? I found compelling evidence from both sides on this one. The believers are painted as crazy, but are they? The believers are always painted as crazy. They always make it look like you have to be insane to believe something like this. Well, there's evidence for things like this. And one of the smartest men that ever lived, Nikolai Tesla, had experiments similar to things like this, talked about things similar to this. And this melding of quantum physics and deep religious belief in drugs and sex and all the things that they talk about that they had done, it's not unbelievable. And it's not even unbelievable that those in power would take that technology and that research. I believe if something can be done, it probably is being done. It probably has been done. Or someone's attempting to do it. You know, we live in a madhouse in a world of lies. So who knows really what is true? As I've said, Ong's hat is said to have just been an elaborate hoax. Even the author himself came out and said that he made it all up because he says it started to ruin his life. Conspiracy theorists showing up at his house trying to get him to tell the truth of it all. But if you look into it, in the Incunabella catalog itself, it's very detailed, it's very in-depth, and it includes a lot of scientific research. And then all of the other things that had to have been put together, like the documents that came out of the ashrams and Fard's publishing of his newsletters. All of this, it's very elaborate. Now, they say it's the earliest version of what they call today an ARG, basically a living novel, a role playing game. Now, it could be, or it could be a massive cover up. Like I said, we didn't take a deep dive into this one. We didn't try to prove whether or not it was real. I thought it was an interesting story. It was a recommended topic by Babels, so we looked into it. It was very interesting. And if there's any interest, I'll look into it deeper. Ong's hat actually. All right. Did you hear the Babels mention? Yeah, Babels picked that topic. Fuck that, man. Her name is Marvina. But I called her Babels. I made that up. That's a really cute pet name, by the way. You cannot use it. If you try to use it, I will sue you. I will sue you. And you won't be able to get away with it. You will never be able to use that. That's my pet name. And I just retired it. It will never be anyone else's pet name. So Babels just died. And yeah. If I hear you use it, I will fucking destroy you. I mean, just know that. I will. I will seek you out, and I will fucking destroy you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not, though. Like, don't use it. But, yeah, she came up with that topic, and she came up with a lot of good topics. You know, she had good qualities. Other than being a thief and a con artist, she had good qualities. But that was Ong's hat. That was Joan's favorite video. And I had to do that for Joni. We're on a midnight ride. We gotta show Joan's favorite video from the Shawn Yankee Show collection, the Conspiracy Theories and Chill collection, which is coming back soon. Conspiracy Theories and Chill is going to be launching soon. Be watching for that. The brand new show every Wednesday night. We're going to have a new Conspiracy Theories and Chill. Jackie will probably host one with me. Jackie's one of my co-hosts on the Morning Yank. She's here right now. I just friend requested you, Jackie. You got to accept me because I got to be your friend. Otherwise, we're not real friends. Because if we're not friends on Facebook, we're not real friends. And that's just the way things are. And I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry for the way things are. I wish I could do something about the way things are, but what do you want me to do? You know, if you're not my friend on Facebook, you're not my real friend. That's the way it is. This is where society has evolved to. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Like, I just want to be social, and I want to be accepted, and I want to be cool, and I want to be your Facebook friend. No, but that was Ong's hat. So that was really cool. And Indigo Ginzo has never heard of that one. So that's a good one. Look at that. I brought something to Indigo that she, whoever Indigo is, has never heard of before. You know? Jacqueline just wants to end up living in the woods. Don't send a search party if she ever ends up living in the woods. Even if it's by accident, leave her be. You know what I mean? Just leave her fucking be. That's all. That's all you got to do. Just leave her be. I can't get my hat straight. There. Wait. No. There. There. There we go. That's not straight. It's not. There it is. Hold on. Bam. Wait. Is that? No, it's not. Look at that. It's crooked. Raise it up. Perfect. All right. Jacqueline totally gets it. I totally get it. Everybody totally gets it. And don't draw any attention to it either. When she disappears or when I do. When I ghost out, when I grab my go bag and go, don't even mention it. Just pretend that Shawn never existed. And just move on with your life. Or ghost out too. Like whatever you want to do. But we're having a midnight ride. This is a midnight ride. You ever been on a midnight ride before? Now you have. Tell all your friends about the midnight ride. But we got one more video to watch. And this is probably going to blow your mind to shit. But it's on how we're in a computer simulation. We're in a created simulation, in my opinion, but we're in a simulation beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's proven by science. Look it up. Google that shit. You can even Google that shit. Come on. You can Google it. Go ahead and do it. We're in a simulation. This world is not real. But it's a created simulation and you can control it. We're going to learn about that in this video. Are you ready to have your mind fucking shredded to shit? Because when we take you on a midnight morning ride, or whatever the hell this is called, your mind gets shredded to shit. That's what I do. So this is not for the faint of heart. Are you ready? Let's break it down. Let's find out how to unlock this world. And then we're going to go to bed, okay? We've been up way too late. It's time to go to bed. Right after this. Don't go to bed till after this, but right after this, we're going to fucking bed.
Off of the truth. Now, that doesn't mean I'm saying we have robotic overlords that have us plugged into these pods that go on for miles and miles and miles and feed off of our energy in that way or something like that. But what I am saying is that actually the most cutting edge science available to us today actually shows that we could actually be living in a very complex and sophisticated simulation. And this is not just conjecture anymore. There is hard evidence and data to back up this theory. And it is also backed up by most people's experiences, and we will explore this with some of the data in this video. Now let's say that it is true that you're living in a simulation, which I'm suggesting that it is. Well, that's great, but what good is that to you? What practical value does that have? Well, what if I was also to tell you that there are ways in which you can influence the simulation to influence your reality so that you're living more of the life you want to be living? That you can actually influence it in ways that change the events in your life, the people that come into your life, create more opportunities in your life, if you just follow a pretty simple system. If what we are living in is similar to, say, a computer program, what if you could code, quote unquote, certain cheat codes into the game? What if you could learn the rule set and know how to have the computer, quote unquote, produce certain things that you want in the game for you? Well, guess what? You absolutely can do this when you become aware first and foremost that you're living in a simulation, and then you learn the rules to that simulation. And so in this video, we're going to look at how it is and why it is that we actually live in a simulation, a very sophisticated, complex simulation, mind you. We are going to learn the rules, the real rules to this game and this simulation, and most important, how you can actually use these rules and these new things that you're doing to plug in cheat codes into the game to the point where you're doing things in your life where people come up to you and ask, how the heck are you doing that? Essentially, you're going to be able to mold, influence, and create your reality in extremely powerful ways. So let's first start with why it is we now know that the most likely scenario is that we are living in a simulation, how that works, and then we'll take it from there. So the first thing we need to look at is Newtonian paradigm versus this kind of simulation hypothesis, or this theory that we're living more in a computerized simulation or close to or similar to that kind of reality. Now, the Newtonian paradigm basically states that everything is materialistic, that we are living in this very materialistic universe, that basically, that is base reality. Newtonian physics. Basically everything involved within the realm of Newtonian physics is all there is, and anything that falls outside of that is just gobbledygook. It's not real, it's just fantasy, it's woo-woo, and that stuff doesn't really exist. There might be some anomalies, but ultimately that doesn't exist. Whereas the simulation theory or hypothesis says something very, very different that we're going to get into in just a moment, and I'm going to give you some analogies so you can relate to this and know how to operate within it. Now, the first thing we need to look at when it comes to which one we live in, is it really just a physical reality with basically nothing else, or is there something more? Is we can look at something that most scientists and researchers have agreed happened at a very long time in the past, which was the Big Bang. However, the Big Bang from a materialistic point of view, from a Newtonian paradigm, is incredibly hard to explain, because the Big Bang is stated as being something that essentially came from nothing, and basically that everything that is in the known universe came from this state of nothingness into everything. And it's kind of like that famous quote, materialism wants you to give them one miracle and then claim that there are no other miracles, right? That one miracle being that everything came from nothing. And then it's like, just give us that, and then the rest we can explain. However, if you look at this idea of the universe instead being virtual, more like a computer, it actually makes complete sense, this idea of a Big Bang, and actually fits that theory. Whereas in, again, Newtonian physics, it doesn't really fit materialism, this kind of nothing coming, or everything coming out of nothing. It doesn't fit that theory, but completely meshes and aligns to the theory of the virtual reality. This is because if you were to start, say, a game like The Sims up, it's starting from a zero state, or what's called a zero state. And then you start up the game and an information influx from a zero state as you boot up the game, which then provides all the data and everything for what's going to be in the game. So if you start a game up from the perspective of the game coming from a zero state, it's almost as if a Big Bang is occurring every time you boot it up from that zero state. And I'm not going to be the best person to be able to explain exactly how that works, but you can find many different physicists and others who explain this in a lot more detail on how this works.
From the materialist view that our universe is all there is, as an objective, independent reality, the fact that the Big Bang came from nothing is very hard to explain. How could everything come from nothing? But if you look at the universe as a virtual construct, the Big Bang model works perfectly. Virtual worlds always begin with an information influx from a zero state, since they need to initially boot up. Every time a computer game starts up, a Big Bang occurs from the perspective of the game. From inside the virtual world itself, the creation always comes from nothing, because before it boots up, there is no space or time as defined by the rules of that virtual world.
Ultimately, the simulation hypothesis is the one that lines up much more accurately. In fact, the only one that really lines up accurately as far as what all of this is, what reality is, when it comes to this idea of the Big Bang, which again, pretty much every scientist and researchers agree is something that happened in the way distant past. While materialism really falls flat when it tries to explain how it can exist as base reality with a Big Bang. In fact, something that is incredibly interesting is physicist James Gates has actually found computer code in our world when digging deep enough. So I'm actually going to play a clip where he's explaining this just a little bit, or just kind of his discovery. And I believe he's speaking to Neil deGrasse Tyson about this. Neil deGrasse Tyson, you can kind of tell, is like kind of almost blown away by it. But essentially, that they found computer code. The deeper you go, the more you dig into what our reality is made up of. They literally found computer code.
So you're saying as you dig deeper, you find computer code writ in the fabric of the cosmos?
Into the equations that we want to use to describe the cosmos, yes.
Computer code?
Computer code, strings of bits of ones and zeros.
It's not just sort of resemble computer code. You're saying it is computer code.
It's not even just is computer code, it's a special kind of computer code that was invented by a scientist named Claude Shannon in the 1940s.
So are you saying we are all just, there's some entity that programmed the universe and we're just expressions of their code?
And perhaps this really sounds bizarre whenever you've heard this idea that we're in a simulation or like the equivalent of a computer game. Wouldn't I know that I'm in the game? Wouldn't it be obvious to me that I'm in a simulation? But you have to also understand that this is an incredibly complex simulation, an incredibly complex game. It's not really something we can relate to the simulations, even the more advanced ones that we have, that we've created here. But however, I will play a clip from what's called the simulation hypothesis, which is something I highly recommend to go watch if this resonates with you and you want to learn a lot more of the science and data behind it, because this might give you a little bit of an explanation of how this works. So I'll play that clip now.
If I were a character in a computer game that were so advanced that I were actually conscious and I started exploring my video game world, it would actually feel to me like it was made of real solid objects, made of physical stuff. Yet, if I started studying, as the curious physicist that I am, the properties of this stuff, the equations by which things move, and the equations that give the stuff its properties, I would discover eventually that all these properties were mathematical. The mathematical properties that the programmer had actually put into the software that describes everything.
The server that's creating you is not in your reality frame. It's outside. If you're Sims, that computer is non-physical to you. What's physical to you is your Sims world.
Now, another great analogy to break it down even more that kind of shows how this actually works and how basically the virtual reality and the physical reality act with each other and what their place in all of this is what we just call the computer game analogy. Now,
hold on, I'm just going to break in for a second. Thank you, by the way, Indigo. This is a great collection of conspiracy theory videos, but they all go together. Do you understand the common bond yet? Between all these videos, they go together. So how do you get to the treasure chest? We're going to find out, Jacqueline. He's going to explain to us how to unlock our world and how you can create your own destiny. And you could be the masters of your own universe. But thank you. I appreciate that you're having a good time. We're almost through this one. And then I got a little more to talk to you about. And we're going to wrap up. But let me let him continue because he's got to tell us how to unlock our world and get the cheat code. You know, remember when you played video games and you had the cheat code? That's what we're about to get.
You have to understand that the computer game analogy goes like this, that the computer game is actually a subset of a superset. And so that's just to say, let's say you play Sims. Sims is a game that you can actually boot up but only use via a computer, right? So the computer is actually what we call the superset. The game is the subset. It is within the rule set of the computer, so to speak. So the game actually represents Newtonian paradigm of physical matter reality, and it is something that comes from something much larger, which in this case we can call the computer or the superset. Now, when it comes to our virtual reality or our game that we perceive as our physical everyday lives, the subset that is actually coming from the superset, which we're just labeling again as the computer, the greater computer system. Some of us call it field, source, but we actually can label it as consciousness. And so this physical reality has actually become born out of consciousness. And so consciousness is primary, and then this physical matter reality is simply a subset coming from that consciousness. Now stick with me here. So physical reality is the subset. You have the computer, that is the superset, and this is kind of the grander scheme of things as a source, the field. And one way you can also look at it is consciousness is the one that's actually moving the joystick. If we look at it with another analogy, say World of Warcraft, the character on screen is the elf, but the player is the one actually moving the elf. But from the perspective of the elf, everything in that world seems real. The people that they interact with, the battles that they get in, the growth that they go through while they go through the game, all of that seems like the real thing, like what they are. But we know as we're watching that happen that the elf on screen isn't the true player. The true player is the one holding the joystick, making the decisions from off the screen, yet it's creating these certain events on screen. And one of the crucial ways in which we can influence our reality is to understand that the subset, the game, is actually coming from the superset. And so if we take our attention off the character, the elf on screen, which is just this physical reality, me moving around in just this physical body, and we put it more on the player, our consciousness, we can also call this our higher self. We can call this putting our attention on source. Again, we can call whatever we want to call it. But when we start taking our attention off the elf or the character and start putting more on the player, that's ultimately handling the joystick that's creating the actions of the character on screen or creating a lot of what's on the screen, then we start to have a little more influence over our lives and what actually shows up on screen. So this is where things get interesting, right? I want to go over some of the rules of this so-called simulation that you are a part of. Because we all know the physical rules to our physical reality. And these rules are also very fine-tuned, but like we've mentioned, they are a subset of much greater rules, of much greater principles that determine, what we're allowed to do in this game, essentially. And so there are rules that are predominant over the rules of Newtonian physics. There are rules that go beyond it. Essentially, many of these rules can be worked around if we know to take our attention off the physical reality, off the elf character, and move it more onto the player behind the scenes. It's like being the person who's off the film set versus just the character who's on the film set. When we come off the film set, we can maybe arrange the things on set a little bit differently. We can maybe influence the script so different things are written into it. But when we're the character acting out the script that's playing in our lives, or the things on set are already arranged in a certain way, it can seem like that's just what it is until we realize we can step off set and influence things from a different perspective. Remember, this non-physical, which is the computer, is allowing the physical, the game, to be able to exist at all. And so we can learn to plug cheat codes from the computer into the game. So again, in the physical reality, there are very linear rules. This is where Newtonian physics is very useful and has been very useful and has helped us to really start mastering this physical game. But it's also caused us to believe it's the only game and that there's nothing beyond it, which has caused a lot of suffering and headache and frustration because we're not tuning into the greater game that's at large we can use to influence the Newtonian game. And the Newtonian game, although it operates on very linear rule sets, the non-physical operates in very non-linear rule sets, or at least from our perspective it does. We actually live in a very non-linear reality. Things do not typically happen on an A to B to C to D level. They usually happen in a much different way. So you can definitely continue to play from the linear model of Newtonian physics and play in that way. And it's a very limited way to play. Or you can learn how to play from the non-physical perspective, how to play from the thing that's actually creating the game in the first place, how to influence that, and then open yourself up to so many more possibilities. So let's talk about a way in which you can start to play with these new rules and to take your attention off the rules of just the physical. Because again, if you keep giving your attention just to the physical, you're just going to keep trying to play by that linear rule set. Now, can you get things done by doing that? Yes. Can you do certain things just within the physical, disregarding the rest? Absolutely. But it's going to be slower. It's going to be more of a struggle. It's going to come with more frustration. There's always going to be something in you that thinks there's something more to it because it's able to connect to the non-physical, even if you're not putting your attention on it. And so it's a much harder way in which to play the game, and it's guaranteed to come with, again, frustration and burnout and overwhelm. But you can also do something where you attach more to the non-physical and allow the physical then to be influenced from that point. And so what I want to give you right now is what we call the Lego factory analogy. And this is an idea we dive into deeply with our clients that go through our reality creation program, where we get them to essentially learn how to live in this simulation as like a master creator, how to absolutely influence it in their everyday lives in ways that they actually want, which is something you're able to do once you learn the rules to this game and you practice playing it, which we show them how to do. I'm going to give you this analogy that we dive deep in with them. And this is simply called the Lego factory analogy. So imagine that in your physical world, everything is like a Lego brick. It's physical stuff, right? So you have all these Lego bricks in your world. All the physical stuff in your life is a Lego brick. And all of these Lego bricks come from the Lego factory. Now, the Lego bricks in your life represent the physical. The Lego factory represents the non-physical. And so the way most people try and change their lives or interact with reality is if they want something, they start complaining about the Lego bricks already in their life, or they start trying to change those Lego bricks into something they're not. But once these Lego bricks come into your physical world, from the non-physical into the physical, they're here, they're not going anywhere, right? They're already physical stuff. But instead of trying to, again, be the character or elf kind of moving around with these Lego bricks, and again, you can get some things done by doing that, or trying to change them into something they're not, something else you want. What if we were able to go into the Lego factory itself and request new things? What if instead of resisting what's already here, the current Lego bricks, and fighting against them, what if we could, again, just go into the back door of the Lego factory, go up to one of the workers and request a new mold to be created in the Lego factory? And then after enough time, because there is a time delay between the non-physical to the physical, because we're under those rules in the physical, but after enough time, that mold would be created, and then the Lego bricks from that mold would then start to come through. And so what we show our students is that this is absolutely possible, and then we show them how to actually do it. And ultimately, it is when you start engaging with the non-physical aspect of the simulation, of reality, when you start going into more of the computer part, when you pause the elf on screen, or you get out of the character and you go more into the player, again, that you can start encoding different things into the game. Because do you think it's any harder for the computer to put one thing in the game or another thing in the game? No, it just require a different code ultimately. And so life can bring you, again, from the non-physical into the physical, pretty much anything that you could desire. It might take, again, more time depending on what it is. And again, because we're under those rule sets of time in the physical, if you want something physically. Again, you can access other things instantaneously. You want to feel joy? Guess what? You actually have access to that pretty quickly. If you want to access other states of being, for example, love, I could just tell you to think of someone you absolutely love, and you can access that right now. Think of a pet that lights you up. Boom, you're accessing the emotion of love. But things in the physical, because they're under the Newtonian paradigm, do take a little bit of time. And so one crucial thing we want to do is to take our attention off the current physical circumstances and keep them attuned instead to our vision. So we put our attention on the vision, which is like going into the Lego factory, essentially handing that over to the workers, and they go, okay, we'll make those molds. It's going to take some time, but we'll make those molds. Again, time for it to come into physical, and to stop getting hooked into whatever the circumstances are. Why? Because when you get hooked into the circumstances in the physical reality, which again comes from the non-physical, and you're making that more real than the non-physical, you're giving more attention to these things and simply recreating those things over and over and over again. Because now you're thinking about those things, the Lego factory is getting your order as you want more of these molds, and we'll give you more of the same. But if you instead give more attention to what it is you want in your life, to your vision, you give more attention to the things that you love, you're more grateful, I'm sure you've heard about that, you're appreciative, which makes you appreciate what you appreciate appreciates. Then suddenly you'll start getting different Lego bricks coming out of the factory because the computer is now putting different things in the game. So if you want to change your physical circumstances to something differently, you have to stop putting attention on the physical circumstances. And not in the sense of like you don't go about your day or whatever, but stop complaining about things that are in your physical. Because by giving your attention to it, it's like you're going into the factory, although at this point unconscious, handing over more blueprints of what you don't want, and they're like, okay, if you insist, giving you more of the same. If you go in, however, with your attention more on your vision, if you go in more with your attention on the levels of emotions you want to experience the equivalent of physically, then you're going to start getting different Lego bricks. Again, because this reality, physical reality, is subject to influence. What is your influence? It's your attention and it's your intention. Meaning your attention, what are you putting your attention on mainly in the physical? Intention, what are you putting your intention from an inner place on as well? If you continue to put your intention on things that you don't want, your attention on things that you don't want, and usually these play together, you will continue to produce things that you don't want. More of those same Lego bricks, which is just more of the same physical stuff, will start to come into your world. A great example of this, have you ever had a certain person in your life that you just really didn't like and you kept resisting them and you're like, you know what, I gotta get away from this person. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna leave this job or whatever else it is. And then you get to the next job or the next place and on cue, there is the exact same person just in a different body waiting for you. Yes, this happens all the time to people in relationships. This happens all the time to people when they switch jobs. This happened to me many, many times, where it happened 4 or 5 times that in different environments, I kept getting the same type of person. Why? Because I wasn't taking my attention off it. I wasn't focusing on the kind of person I wanted in my life. I kept complaining about the kind of person that was there. And so no matter where I went, I kept recreating and having this Lego brick come into my life, so to speak. So before I jump into some more tools of a practical nature that you can use in order to, again, influence your reality, influence the simulation so you're getting more of what you want, if you are looking to do this at a high level and you don't want trial and error, you don't want to guess with this anymore, and you're ready for just, again, that next level where you're absolutely going to change your life through this material, we have a program called EMF that you can learn more about down below, where you can go check out more about it, how it works, the results people have gotten. Again, this is for someone who's very serious and committed to doing this, is ready to invest, all of that kind of stuff, but is also, again, really ready for change and transformation in their life. Not little stuff, but like a whole new lifestyle. So if that's something that's interesting to you, you're tired of not getting those changes, you kind of want to get off YouTube University a little bit and actually get, accountability, someone to really show you the way, do it with a group of people who are all heading in the same direction, and really, really get that going this year, then you can check that out down below. All right, so what are some other things that you can do to essentially influence the simulation to bring things into your physical life? Because all of this is great, and whether you believe me or not isn't my concern. Some of you will, some of you won't, but even if you do, we need to make this to something that actually helps you, right? We need to make it so that you're actually now utilizing these new things and getting results. Because it's great to have the information and feel good about it, but if it's not helping your life, if you're not, able to bring into your simulation, into your reality, the people you want to bring in, the finances you want to bring in, the vocation you want to bring in, the relationships you want to bring in, and you're not actively moving towards that or having those come in, then it's kind of useless, right? Because knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing, right? Applied knowledge is power. We want results here. We ultimately want usefulness. So how do we do that? The first thing, like I already mentioned, is understanding and really, really remembering that the superset is what bears or the subset is born out of. And that means that the physical is born out of the non-physical. So giving more attention to the non-physical, giving more attention and intention to the Lego factory. I talk about the spiritual, mental, and physical planes. Basically, the spiritual and mental planes of existence are what bring about basically all of the things that come into the physical, the opportunities, the events, the people, and everything. And so if you're not spending that much time on your spiritual and mental hygiene, really monitoring your thoughts and thinking more of what you do want, really helping yourself get into the feelings and energy you want to be in, then it's going to be damn near impossible to influence your reality. And so putting more attention on those things goes a long way. Again, doing the shadow work, really engaging in visualization techniques and meditations, being in good energy as often as you can, and thinking and monitoring your thoughts throughout the day, getting in environments that are conducive for those two things being good. Again, if you're hanging out in environments that make you feel like crap, you might want to not be in those environments to the best you can. If you can't help it, try and spruce up your environment the best you can to influence you in positive ways. But just keep in mind, it is an absolute fact and law that the subset, the physical reality, is influenced or comes from, actually, the superset, which is non-physical reality. And so if you're not putting your attention on the non-physical aspect of yourself, you're not going to change your physical. And the thing is, when we're never taking that time to tune into the non-physical, we get more hooked into the physical, thinking we are the character on screen, the elf, right? We think that's all we are and forget that we are something beyond that that also has influence in the non-physical. And so the more you tune into that non-physical, the more you actually start to connect and remember the power you have, the power of your intention, attention, the influence you have in your life, the things you'll discover as you put your attention there more also will start to blow you away. But if you don't do that regularly, you're going to get hooked more into just the physical game and then be taken for a loop and be sleeping awake and then wake up a year later wondering, oh crap, whoops, what was I doing there? So really start to give more than you have been attention on that non-physical. Now you'll find that when doing this, more opportunities will start appearing in the physical. These two are tied. Again, superset supplies the subset. It gives, a subset is born out of the superset. So if you start doing certain things in the superset, it will create certain effects in the subset in the form of opportunities, people, opportunities to learn certain lessons that will be valuable for you moving forward, opportunities for being able to move to a different place if that's what you desire, getting out of situations that no longer serve you, opportunities to make more money doing things that you love, opportunities for relationships, all of these different things. Then you have to make sure you do take the action, right? You are on the physical. The physical is still a thing that you operate in. It's not to be dismissed. It's just to start understanding that it is not the base reality and that something else is actually producing what's here in the physical, and the nature of this reality is like a simulation. And when you learn those rules to the game, you can start operating on all these planes of existences in harmony rather than in conflict or in a way where it's out of balance. And so
You see what he's saying, though, right? Like, you get it. I get it. You get it. I know you get it. Joan gets it. Like, the thing is, Joan, you are not the elf. Do you get what he's saying there? Like, if you're playing a video game, you got your character on the screen, but it is just responding to what you tell it to do. So you got the controller in your hand and you're like, move left, and it moves left. But it didn't do shit. Like, it did what you told it to do. So you are creating your own universe. This is real hard to accept. It's real hard for me to accept. I'm struggling with this because you are creating your own universe. And you are responsible for it. So if your universe sucks, you created it. You are wired to win. You and me, all of us, are wired to win. So you will create and manifest what you believe. So whatever that is, if you believe the world is shit, you will manifest a shit reality. If you believe the world is great and you're positive, you will manifest a positive reality. It has nothing to do with what you have, what your status is in life. It is all in your mindset and your perception. Everything. And, Jacqueline was talking about the manifested people that keep showing up on her timeline. There are evil forces in this reality as well. That's what you need to remember, and you're under constant attack from them. So don't let their influence change your perspective. There's Mr. Smiths and NPCs everywhere around us. There's also programs that are sent to drop our vibration, to drop your energy, to make you negative like them and steal your life force. And you have to react to them appropriately as well. But this has been a midnight ride. And these are going to be a regular thing because I had a good time with you. And Indigo's right. We had a great collection of videos. We learned a lot. And did you see the underlying theme? Jackie probably did. Jackie's smart. Joan got it, I'm sure. And Samuel probably got it. But anybody who didn't, every video in here had to do with the simulated created reality. Every video. Whether it was them manipulating the simulated created reality or whether it directly had to do with the simulated created reality. I keep saying simulated created because I believe it's created. So Joan asked earlier, who created the simulation? God. The Almighty God. Not, I don't want to hear which God. There's 500 gods. Bullshit. The Almighty God. The only God. You know who I'm talking about. And yeah, there could be other, and there is other gods, but they are all retellings of the same story. And then you're like, oh, well, the Bible's only so old. The Bible's not a telling of the time when it was written. It's on and on and on about this, but there's no time right now. It's bedtime. I'm sleepy. Look at my vagina eyes. They're drooping. Indigo says, love the show. When will the next midnight ride be? I can't promise you because right now I'm not on a consistent schedule, but soon there will be another midnight ride. But you guys, thank you for hanging out. I hope you had a good time. I hope you really enjoyed yourself. I did. I really like hanging out with you guys. And I will see you on the next one of these, the next midnight ride. And Conspiracy Theories and Chill, the show will be back soon. We will be launching, not back, we'll be launching soon. We were a segment on the Shawn Yankee Show, but now we're going to be our own show. And that will be on Conspiracy Theories and Chill, the YouTube channel, Conspiracy Theories and Chill, the Facebook page, and Rumble. So thank you guys, and I'll see you soon. God bless.